Hello, social media family and actual biological family, and a few others, but especially those who follow my blog, Bookworm. Anyway, as I promised last week, I have my review for Rina Z. Neiman's Born Under Fire. It actually is a very good read. I highly recommend it. It's one of three books that I have read about the Jewish experience during the time of Hitler's rise. We all know how the Holocaust went for the Jewish people. Um, it's really similar in style to another book I read. If I am able to sometime tomorrow to come across this book, I will post information about it. But for those of you about my age and older, and maybe since I was younger, back when I was in middle school, we read a book called The Diary of Anne Frank. So it kind of puts me in mind of that. It also puts me in mind. It also puts me in mind of another book that I read about a family that moved to Florida during the time of Hitler's reign of terror. They were here in the States, but they still, the girl was having nightmares about the whole experience. If you're a fan of that type of fiction, and I think Diary of, I can't remember if Diary of Anne Frank was, anyway, I'm not going to go into that. But if you're a fan of that type of work, I highly recommend getting this book. Um, it really kind of goes into depth. It's sort of a book that to me is it's more bystander because they're not, more, the let me go into the main crux of it and then I'll kind of explain what I mean. Um, the book is based on the author is a historical fiction, but it's based on the experiences of um, the author Miss Neiman's mother, Shulamit Dubno Neiman. And in the book, her nickname is shortened to her name is shortened to Shula is her nickname. So the setting is during the time of Jerusalem under British rule. When the book starts, the character is 6 years old, and it goes all the way up to, I would say, probably somewhere between age 20 to 21. Um, the it also it's Nazareth during the British Mandate in Palestine, in some around 1934, and when it ends in Tel Aviv, state of Israel, 1949. Now, the other characters are Rachel, which is her mother, Mahmoud, which is a friend of hers, Avraham, with a V, which is her older brother, and Yaakov, which is her father. During the course of the book, her parents give birth to another child named Yisrael. There's also mention of her aunts that she calls them her dotas, but her aunts Leah and Rivka, and her other aunt Sarah starts to get mentioned later on. She also has a friend named Lilac that starts being mentioned later on in the book. Um, One of the aunts, there was an interesting side story because one of the aunts was a victim, sorry, of domestic violence, and the toll that took, how she looked up to her aunt. We all have that one real cool aunt that we get along with and love really well. She was that aunt for Shula, and how they were seeing bruises and different things like that, and the whole dynamic of domestic violence because people tend to think sometimes that they're hiding things really well from their kids, but really you're not. Little pitchers have big ears, and they notice all of that. So it was a really interesting side story, about how the ants, and the whole honeymoon effect, because people always wonder, how women stay. Well, she talked about that, how he'd hunt her down, and, she couldn't get away from him. She pretty much, then at one point, she has to leave and go to their grandfather's house to get away from him and everything. But the whole thing of covering up, it's very hard to cover things up for a child. You pretty much almost have to, at some point, break the truth down in a language that they can understand. So, um, I also suggest a Google search. If you're really, if you decide to get the book, which I highly suggest that you do a Google search of Jerusalem during British rule, during Hitler's rise to power. I didn't get a chance to do that for my review for this, but I think it'd be interesting to read up on that. It gives a really good view of a family who, even though all of this is going on around them, they're still kind of living life. Um, Shula has a very promising career as a concert pianist. So during this time, music is sort of like her salvation. So if you read my last post with the interview with the authors, with Rina, who is her daughter, she talks about, music, and the use of music in narrative and in storytelling. And she also talks about something called the QR code. Let me see here, which she okay, let me see here. Yeah, the QR code. So the QR code in this book is meant to liven things up. Let me see here. The QR codes are attached to certain audio or video clips to illustrate music or historical content that is referred, and it's intended to deepen the experience of the reader. So if you decide to get the book, I highly recommend it. I may do that sometime tomorrow. Kind of go on the author's website and look at the code so I can see what it is doing. Um, what it does, but I highly recommend it. It is also um, the kitchen table talk I thought was interesting, because as an African American, in the United States, a lot of times, and what I call kitchen table talk is talk that's amongst your family, amongst your family members and everything, that you don't share with everybody in polite company, and maybe not even in mixed company. So they talked a lot about the British, feeling like the British weren't helping them. They talked about the people who were trying to kill them just because they were Jews. A lot of their experiences kind of parallel those of us here. I could relate to, the talk that happens in the household that you can't really say amongst other people, but knowing that, they were, persecuted, they were being persecuted. Um, it also they also go over a lot of situations that remind them of their very real situation there. They're a scene where the household is bombed. Their house is bombed, and having to come back from that. Um, when she comes in, and um, her her mother and her aunts are crying because they've read the news of the 2 million Jews that were exterminated in Auschwitz and in Birkenau, and their fear that they may have lost their aunt, the aunt that was a victim of domestic violence, went to Poland to live with their grandfather to get away from her husband, and so they were very afraid of what happened may have happened to her and the grandfather. We're there. And so let me see here. I also There was also the news when Palestine was reconstituted to the Jewish people. So it wasn't all like negative stuff, but there was stuff, the bombing of their home and different stuff like that. Stuff that even though they, like I said, they weren't directly involved, they weren't directly there, like they weren't in gunfire, they weren't, but you can see where they are being deeply affected by what's going on during that time. There was also normal events, like I said. Shula is a was a promising concert pianist. You also see, because the book spans from her at 6 years old all the way to 21. We see where she's developing crushes on guys. She even develops a relationship with a British soldier where they write back and forth, and you can see that she's developing a real like, she's starting to get in deep like with him. During her most disappointing times, I don't want to give away too much of the book, because one of the things I hate is when people give those reviews that tell too much. But I will say, it's not just very descriptive to where you feel like you're there. She does a really good job of pulling you in to where you feel like you're there with Shula. You can picture everything that's going on. It also is a very emotional book, because when you read about the 2 million Jews that are exterminated, and how they took them, it goes into a little bit of detail where they took them into, handed them, showers and wash rags, and took them into these facilities, and then just gassed them. And if you want to read more about that, I highly recommend reading about that. Don't listen to none of these white supremacists that are running around saying that the Holocaust never happened. It happened. It was a very real part, just like slavery. It was a very real part of, the world history, and just, it will wipe you emotionally. But there's also a couple other parts here that are a real tear jerker, and I don't really, just know that she suffers from some loss because she loses a few family members, and through it all, she just goes to her piano and plays. So, and if you know anything about creative outlets and everything. At one point when I did hair, I could remember when I would, get in somebody's head. Now I sing, or write. But when you have those creative outlets and they kind of take you through your situation, I can remember when I used to go to church, I could start off one way before service. And by the time service was over with, and I'd sung with the worship team or choir, and got that out, I'm not going to say I was fully healed and delivered, but you have more of a sense of hope once you have that channel and you have that creative outlet. As a creative person, when you have that creative outlet, it gives you the ability to go through anything. So um, I won't give you the ending, but let's just say that music, she goes through a year, after, the losses, she goes through a year of mourning, which is normal. And like I said, if you purchase the book and you read the book, you will see, why. Like I said, I don't want to give away she loses two family members, and that are very important family members. And as she is, like I said, going through the grieving process, and is like and I kind of understand, because I've had this experience where you lose people within days of each other, and having to go through that whole process. and everything. But she winds up, you never get over losing someone through death. I say this all the time. You never get over it. No such thing as you just will not get over it. What happens is you begin to have better memories of them. You begin to your memories, the good memories begin to outweigh the bad memories and the loss, and you begin to feel better, and and you gradually feel less sad, but it's not something you get over because you really miss him. I still, I lost my father. I still miss him, especially now that my grandson is here, because I hate that he left before he got a chance to see his first great grandchild. Anyway, so it is a tearjerker in spots, so you will experience some emotion, and she does a really good job of getting you to emote with the characters, so you relate to everything that she is going through. I'm going to post, some pictures on this post. I will have pictures of, you've already seen a picture of the book. You'll see a pic. I'll show you a picture of the author and the actual woman that the book is based on, which is her mother. I also will have the remaining dates of the tour. So once you are visit mine, I encourage you to visit the other blog sites as well to show them some love. Once again, show Miss Neiman some love, and be feel free to ask any questions that you want to ask of her. Um, this posting is probably going to be a tiny bit late in the day. I'm not going to have the ability to post it as because I usually have them posted like the night before, so like 6 in the morning. I'm ready. I'm up and running, and you guys can see it. It's gonna be a little later, but it will get posted. So at the time that you're hearing this, I should have already have it posted. But the remaining dates of the tour, I'm also going to post on there so that, like I said, you can feel free to go ahead and click on some of the other blogs and look at some of the other matter that they're posting about in regards to the book. Um, the next blog book tour that I will have will be in July, and it will be on the healing power of journaling. I don't remember that author's name, but like I did for the interview for the last blog post, and I kind of like previewing and letting you guys know that it's coming up so that you can go ahead and look. So I will be doing a preview about a week or so or a few days before that particular before the introductory blog post that Bookworm is going to be doing, so that you will know, and I will have more details, as far as the complete title of the book and the author's name. But the book is about the healing power of journaling. So I'll get a chance to read that in time. Just like this time, the interview and guest posts are going to be on the first part, and I think my dates are the 12th and the 19th of July. That'll be when my particular portion of the tour will be posted. So I love you guys. I look forward to pr- you know I look forward to you guys showing Miss, like I said, Miss Neiman some love. Ask as many questions as you like. I recommend going to her site and ordering the book. It's a really good book. Like I said, if you're into books about the Holocaust and about the Jewish experience, I highly recommend this book. This would be the third. I recommend The Diary of Anne Frank. I recommend, if I can find the other book that I'm referring to, I will post information about it. but this will be this. I would say this was probably one of the top three books that I would recommend if you want to read about the experience, if you want to read the experience of the Jews, not just the factual things, but the experience as it relates to people who were hearing about the news, about different things, and how the experience. Because even though it was bystander, it wasn't incredibly bystander, because as I said, their house got bombed. They just had other stuff that they were going through that were reminders of this whole entire experience. So if you like reading about that, if you like reading about that particular portion of history, and like historical fiction, and you like reading about, and you like reading about that particular topic, and this would be a very good thing to read. And then, like I said, I would also recommend doing some independent research on the facts and the whole history of you know Jerusalem under British rule, Tel Aviv, all of that, to give yourself a more well-rounded understanding of this particular family's experiences with it. I like the fictional accounts because they give more of a face and give you a more human side. It's not just what's in your history books, but these are real people that this stuff was happening to. Anyway, I love you guys, and I look forward to the next tour with you guys. Bye bye.